Hi, Dr. Roscoe. So my vignette, my PowerPoint is on a political issue, which is the second of the vignettes that were presented in our syllabus. I decided to use a theory that I didn't know much about. We had already covered in class, but didn't know a ton about, so I could learn a little bit more. So I decided to use individual psychology, which of course is the brainchild of Alfred Adler. The problem. As the clients see it, clients Jennifer and Tommy O'Hanlon want to discuss marital issues. Tommy, a local politician with his sights on the presidency, is in love with another woman. Jennifer wants Tommy to end his relationship, but is fine with Tommy seeing other women. So, as the clients see the issue, it is really only the fact that Tommy is in love with this particular woman that causes any problems. In the grander scheme of things, though, as a therapist might see it, you might delve a little bit deeper into why this particular relationship exists at all. Now, as I would see it as a therapist, both Tommy and Jennifer are acting out a cycle of compensation, resignation, and overcompensation as a result of their feelings of inferiority in their families of origin. Now, my basis for thinking that. Both spouses are striving for superiority, which is a natural function, as our first instinct as an infant is to feel inferior and vulnerable. Now, Adler talked a lot about the family constellation and how birth order affects our temperament and our goals, especially. Now, in this case, birth order within the family constellation determines our earliest feelings of superiority or inferiority within the family context. Tommy, the youngest of four children, wants to be president to outshine his older siblings, a concept that Adler might refer to as a fictional final goal. Jennifer, an only child, feels that she has no one to rely on and has chosen a husband that relies heavily upon her for his status and reputation. Jennifer is overcompensating for always taking a backseat to men in her mother's eyes. She swore that she would never let a man screw up her life. She achieved great success in school as compensation, but has overcompensated when choosing a husband. Tommy has based his entire personality on his political facade. His narrative of the poor Irish immigrant family making it in America is romantic, but in actuality it's a story of compensation and overcompensation, resulting in an individual who is more of a product of his fears than a fully formed, holistic human being. Both individuals are more concerned with public perception than how they feel internally, as evidenced by the non-disclosure agreement that Jennifer presented to the therapist at the end, and Tommy being late into the meeting in order to campaign. The political career and the public perception therein has taken a front seat, and the feelings of the individual spouses has been set on a back burner. While it does seem like the spouses do carry a certain amount of mutual respect for one another, the primary focus is Tommy's political career and the perceived notion of success for both of them. Divorce is off the table, as it would look bad politically. Now for the treatment plan. Just like most theories, the most important part of the beginning phase of the treatment is to establish a rapport with the clients, Tommy and Jennifer, and to nurture a therapeutic, empathetic, and constructive partnership. Now, with this particular case, I think it is also important to have each spouse rate their happiness and a variety of marriage goals in order to take the temperature of the relationship. That is something that Adler described specifically for his couples therapy. Now, that particular strategy, taking the temperature of the relationship, often would take place in a middle phase. However, looking closely at this particular vignette, I don't necessarily see what the presenting problem for the couple is. I think it'd be very important not to pathologize the clients without really them identifying their issues. As the vignette is presented, their really only issue is this one sticking point, this one disagreement about whether the Tommy having a relationship with a girl he loves outside the marriage is outside the bounds of that agreement. Now, taking the temperature of the relationship may bring up more issues. So it's going to be very, very, very important for the therapist to be careful here, not to pathologize. but that should give insight whether the rest of the treatment is even needed or not. So, the middle phase, psychosocial investigation of the family of origin conflicts and their influence on adult personalities. The therapist, according to the vignette, has already taken the family constellation, as was a tenet of Adlerian theory. Now, tracking of symptoms and patterns of dysfunction for one or both members of the couple, review of systemic issues regarding family constellation, formative experiences, and repeated patterns. Now, this portion really would depend heavily on if they are unhappy with how they have reacted in their overreactions to their families of origin. If they are unhappy and with certain aspects of it, for example, Jennifer being married to a man that she really is there for political power and not for someone she loves, then we can proceed. The therapist would then give insight into the lifestyle choices as well as goals and values. Therapists use reflective questioning in order to give insight into repeated negative patterns and overcompensation. At that point, the therapist would reorient each member towards a more secure and flexible perception of self. Most importantly, though, is to establish goals. If the only goal this couple has is to settle the argument of whether Tommy is not following their agreement or not, then this particular therapy really isn't necessarily for them. Now, end phase, again, this is dependent on how all of this goes, how the goals that they set. But once again, take the temperature of the relationship to gauge improvement, reaffirm goals towards a more autonomous sense of self through reorientation. Now, the prognosis for this couple using individual therapy. Really, the best I can say is there's simply not enough information in the vignette. All that they really give us in the vignette is this couple is coming in over a disagreement on on a sticking point of their agreement. It seems that their marriage has gotten along just fine until Tommy fell in love with a girl outside of the marriage, rather than just simply having a sexual relationship with girls outside of the marriage. That is why individual psychology really probably isn't for them. In fact, I'm not certain that this couple, unless they really do want to improve their insight into their relationships and why they accept what they accept and do certain things, really need therapy at all. Individual psychology is a non-evidence-based practice, therefore it probably isn't going to work here as well as it possibly could. It's heavily dependent on participation by both spouses. Now, Tommy does state in the vignette that he trusts Jennifer, and Jennifer can basically speak for him. So if he's not there because of his schedule, then just to go for Jennifer. In this case, if we were using individual psychology on just Jennifer, she was the only one to show up, I fear that we might be pathologizing the couple relationship. Now, if Jennifer is seeking help simply on her own, without Tommy there and without the context of Tommy, that's a different thing. But as they presented as a couple, I would be comfortable saying that. Goals need to be defined by the client. Therapist needs to be sure not to pathologize clients unnecessarily. It seems like they're happy. Tommy, other than this one thing. Tommy, of course, is happy with the situation as his goals, no matter their origin, are lofty and for the public good. He certainly wouldn't be the first presidential candidate who had a marriage of convenience or political power. Jennifer has agreed to Tommy's infidelity within reason. If it is her goal to be married to a powerful man no matter the cost, she's achieved it, and really, I don't quite understand why this couple is in therapy. While we can clearly see that she's accepting of a man who seemingly has no time for her, which can be unhealthy, it is not clear from the vignette if this causes her distress. Again, we should not pathologize where things are where pathology doesn't exist. Seemingly, her only issue is that Tommy is actually in love with this new girl. This, to me, seems more of a mediation type of therapy rather than an in-depth psychoanalysis. With ease of application, while individual psychology is a perfect tool to supply insight into the temperament of each individual and why they accept what they accept in the marriage, it is not a tool to fix any issues without pathologizing these clients further. The researcher John Gottman played into this. He said that Gottman's research concluded at least 69% of couples' issues are unsolvable, but that is not a predictor of happiness or unhappiness, and certainly not a predictor of success. We could simply chalk this impasse that the couple is having up to an unsolvable issue. If both are still focused on what they perceive to be the public good, if both still view the marriage as a good thing, as it seems they do, then this may just be one of those sticking points. And unless there is significant distress on the part of Jennifer, is more likely, she has more of the impetus to change the marriage than Tommy does, then this doesn't really belong in a couples theory application. All right, here are my references that I used. Hope you enjoyed my slideshow presentation.